That moment when it hits you, you're going to name a whole new person. It's incredibly exciting, but let's be honest, it can also feel a little daunting.
Oh, absolutely.
Like this one word you choose is going to echo through their entire life. It's a big deal.
It truly is a unique responsibility. It's not just a label.
Yeah.
It's often the first piece of their identity that you, well, consciously shape.
Exactly. So for this deep dive, we've got a fantastic resource. We're calling it naming.pdf for our purposes.
Mm.
Basically, a guide designed to help expectant parents navigate this sometimes overwhelming process.
Right. And it sounds like it's packed with advice and offers a really structured way to approach what can feel like a purely emotional decision sometimes.
Totally. And what makes a guide like this so valuable, I think, is that it goes beyond just, lists of names. It really focuses on the how.
The strategies and the conversations that lead to a decision you both feel good about. That's key.
And that's precisely what we're going to explore with you today. Our mission, really, is to pull out the most useful insights from this guide, the practical steps, and smart thinking that can make your baby naming journey smoother.
Maybe even a little less stressful.
Hopefully, and maybe a lot more enjoyable. So, let's get started. The guide begins by highlighting the importance of collaboration. This isn't a solo mission.
No, definitely not. It really emphasizes open communication between you and your partner right from the get-go.
Yeah, and it even suggests some excellent starting points for those initial chats. Things like, okay, what are your general name preferences? Are you leaning traditional, more modern sounds?
Or is it important to us that the name reflects our background, our culture, maybe certain values? Questions like that.
These initial discussions are just crucial, aren't they? They help you both understand the other's underlying tastes and priorities before you even start throwing specific names out there.
Exactly. It's about building a shared foundation for the whole process, making sure you're kind of aiming in the same direction.
And then comes the practical step, creating a shared list, which sounds simple, but it's effective.
Yeah, could be a note on your phone, a shared doc, or, piece of paper on the fridge, somewhere you can both add names as you think of them.
And see your ideas evolve together. That shared list becomes like a tangible record of your ongoing dialogue.
It prevents good ideas from just disappearing into the ether and lets you see if any patterns are emerging in what you both like.
Okay, so now what happens when those individual preferences?
Well, don't quite line up. The guide tackles the sometimes tricky territory of disagreements head on.
Right. And this is where the concept of a veto rule comes in. And it's presented as fundamental for respectful collaboration.
Explain that a bit more, the veto rule.
Basically, if one partner has a genuine, strong aversion to a name, really dislikes it, it's just taken off the table. No big debate needed.
And crucially, without guilt, right?
Exactly. No guilt trips allowed. It respects that visceral reaction someone might have. Which makes total sense, doesn't it? You want this whole thing to be positive for both of you. And the guide offers some really constructive ways to navigate those vetoes and find common ground.
Yes, it suggests exploring variations. Maybe a different spelling of the vetoed name, or a similar sounding one. Sometimes it's just one element that's the issue.
Or, and I thought this was clever considering it for a middle name.
That's a great compromise. That way, a name one of you loves can still be part of your child's identity, just not the main event, so to speak.
Yeah. The guide also wisely advises setting boundaries, avoiding pressure. This should be a joint effort, not a competition.
Absolutely. And taking a break if things get tense. You don't want bad vibes associated with choosing your child's name.
Okay, but what about the really tough one? Where one of you falls completely head over heels for a name and the other just can't stand it.
Ah, yes. The guide dedicates a good chunk to this, offering a really thoughtful 5-step approach.
5 steps. Okay, let's break that down.
So step 1 is to really understand the why behind the dislike. Ask your partner why they don't like it, and this is key. Listen openly. Don't jump straight to defending it.
Because often it's not the name in a vacuum, is it? It might be the sound, the spelling, or maybe a bad association.
Exactly. The guide even mentions the idea of baggage, like a totally unrelated negative feeling someone has attached to that name from their past.
Okay, so understand the why. What's step 2?
Step 2 is for the partner who loves the name to explain its meaning and significance to them. If it has personal ties, a family connection, maybe a place you both love, something meaningful, sharing that story is important.
Even if it doesn't change their mind about the name itself.
Right, even then. Because sharing that heartfelt connection can foster mutual respect and understanding. They see why it matters so much to you.
Okay, that makes sense. Step 3.
Step 3 is exploring those variations and compromises we touched on earlier. Different spellings, nicknames, similar names, the middle name swap. Basically, being adaptable.
Seeing this as a version that works for both of you.
Precisely. Step 4 is interesting. Put the name in a maybe pile. Revisit it later.
Let it percolate a bit.
Exactly. The guide suggests sometimes names just need time to grow on people. What feels weird now might sound perfect in a few months. Perspective can shift.
Okay, and the final step, number 5.
This one's called the emotional trade. It's if one partner feels incredibly strongly like a deep connection to a name, they might offer to prioritize something equally meaningful to the other partner in return.
Huh. Like a conscious give and take on something deeply personal.
Yeah, it acknowledges the emotional weight of the decision for both people involved. It's a mature way to handle a potential impasse.
That does sound like a really considerate approach. Now, what about when you just hit a total roadblock? You've gone through lists, you've talked, and nothing feels right, that naming wall.
The guide has some great suggestions for breaking through that. Sometimes the simplest thing is best. Just step away. Take a break from talking about names for a week or two.
Clear the mental slate.
Exactly. Come back with fresh eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Another idea I really liked was trying a thematic approach.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Like saying, okay, this week, let's only look at nature names. Or let's explore names from our grandparents' generation. It adds focus.
That could definitely spark some unexpected ideas. Takes the pressure off finding the one from all possible names.
Right. The guide also suggests independently browsing baby name databases, maybe rating names privately, then comparing your shortlists later. See where the overlap is.
Or maybe seeing what the other person liked can help you figure out your own tastes better.
Precisely. And another fun one. Give each other a short list, say 5 names each, just to react to. Not necessarily to choose, but just to discuss.
Oh, I see. Sometimes articulating why you don't like something someone else picked helps clarify what you do like.
Exactly. It's a less direct way to understand each other's gut reactions. Now, the guide also dives into a really common dilemma. Common versus uncommon names.
This is huge. I feel like everyone grapples with this. Do you go for something classic and familiar or something unique?
And the guide offers a nicely balanced view, laying out the pros and cons of both pretty clearly.
So for common names, the pros are obvious, right? Usually easy to spell, easy to pronounce, people know the name.
Which can be helpful in school, later in work, just general life stuff, less friction perhaps.
But the downside is popularity. Your kid might be one of 3 Olivias or Noahs in their class.
Yeah, and maybe it feels a bit less distinctive, a little generic for some parents' taste.
Okay, so flip side. Uncommon names, pro. Definitely unique.
Memorable, a strong sense of individuality. That can be really appealing.
But the cons. The guide highlights things like potential for constant misspelling or mispronunciation.
That can be a lifelong frustration, yeah. And sometimes very unusual names might draw unwanted attention or questions.
So finding that sweet spot is key. The guide has a great line. Aim for familiar but not overused, or unique but not obscure.
That's the tightrope walk, isn't it? Finding that perfect balance.
Now, related to that, the guide also outlines some general categories of names to maybe approach with caution.
Yeah, these are sort of gentle warnings, things to think twice about.
Mm-hmm.
First up, names that are genuinely very difficult to spell or pronounce for most people in your culture.
That can just set your kid up for minor hassles throughout their life.
Mm-hmm. Also, names with really strong negative historical or pop culture associations. You probably don't want to name your kid after a notorious villain, right?
Probably not, unless there's a very specific reason. The guide also mentions those trend-chasing spellings.
Oh, yeah. Deliberately quirky spellings like adding extra letters or using a Y where an I would normally go. They can feel very of the moment.
And potentially look quite dated later on, like certain spellings from the 80s or 90s seem very specific to that era now.
Exactly. Then there are word names with clearly negative connotations, like naming your child Chaos or Rebel.
Unless, again, the guide points out that's a very deliberate choice with a specific, maybe positive family meaning, but generally probably avoid.
And finally, and this is a practical one, names that just really invite teasing. Easy rhymes, unfortunate puns.
Yeah. Gotta think about the playground test, unfortunately.
It's worth considering, definitely.
So we've talked process, disagreements, types of names. But the guide also digs into a more fundamental question. How much does a name really matter in the grand scheme of things?
Right. It explores the psychology of names, how they can influence our sense of self, our identity. The guide suggests our names can play a role in self-perception, feelings of confidence, or uniqueness.
And interestingly, how others might perceive us based on our name.
Hmm.
It mentions some research suggesting, names that are easier to pronounce might get slightly more positive first impressions. Subtle stuff.
It is subtle, but maybe more profoundly. A name with cultural or family significance can really anchor a child's identity, connect them to their roots.
Give them a sense of belonging, yeah. The guide also talks about the actual sound of the name, practical things,
Like how it flows with the last name. Say it out loud. Does it sound clunky? Smooth.
and how it sounds with sibling names, if that's a factor. Do they clash or complement each other?
And a really crucial practical check,
Yeah.
the initials.
Oh gosh, yes. Definitely write down the first, middle, and last initial to make sure they don't spell something. Unfortunate.
Or just awkward. And also
Oh,
thinking about nicknames, both the ones you like and the ones that might pop up whether you like them or not.
good point. Now, shifting gears slightly, the guide offers some really helpful mindset advice for this whole undertaking, which I think is needed.
It really is. One key point is to think of naming as giving a gift, not like branding an item.
Right. You're not looking for the flashiest label. You're choosing something deeply personal for someone you love.
And it makes the point that often names with a sense of timelessness hold their value better than names that are super trendy right now.
Something that won't feel dated in 20 or 30 years.
Hmm. There's also a lovely idea in there about how a child doesn't just grow into their name, they also shape how that name is perceived by others through who they are.
Whoa, I like that. It's a dynamic relationship between the person and the name.
Exactly. And a key reminder, you're not just naming a cute baby, you're naming a future adult.
Someone who will use that name on resumes, introduce themselves professionally. It has long-term weight.
For sure. And when it comes back to navigating those disagreements, the guide circles back to some core mindset principles. Number one, respect over winning.
Always. It's not a debate to be won. You're a team.
Exactly. Maintaining respect for each other's feelings is paramount. The second is the reassurance that a perfect name, it's subjective.
Right. There's no single objectively perfect name out there.
It's the love and the parenting that ultimately give the name its deepest meaning. Whatever name you choose will become special because it's their name.
That's a comforting thought. And the guide also reinforces the potential for, lingering resentment if one partner feels pushed into a name they didn't truly love.
Yeah, that forced agreement can really sour things. Mutual agreement leads to shared pride in the choice.
Okay, so after considering all this, the collaboration, the potential pitfalls, the meaning, how do you actually make the final decision? The guide offers some concrete strategies.
Yes, practical methods to get you across the finish line. The mutual veto rule is mentioned again, just as that foundational tool. Everyone needs to feel okay with the final choice.
Then there's the three-name compromise. Can you remind us how that works?
Sure, each partner picks their absolute top 3 names. Then you put those 6 names together and look for overlap.
Or maybe one name from each list that feels like a good blend. Or maybe just seeing the top 3 helps clarify the direction.
Exactly. It narrows the field and highlights common ground. Another option is the first and middle split.
Where one person chooses the first name, the other chooses the middle.
Yes, with the understanding that you both have to agree on the full name combination, it gives each partner a clear domain.
And I really liked the test run method. It seems so practical.
It does. Just try using a top contender name for a few days. Say it out loud when talking about the baby. How's little Leo doing today? See how it feels?
Does it roll off the tongue? Does it feel right? That real-world test can be super insightful.
Mm-hmm. The guide also throws in some valuable bonus tips, little nuggets of wisdom.
Like saying the full name out loud in different tones.
Yeah, like the sweet cooing voice, but also the dinner's ready voice, or even the slightly sterner tone you might use occasionally. How does it sound in all contexts?
Good one. Checking initials and rhymes again, just one last time.
Double-checking never hurts. Researching meanings and origins, sometimes you find a beautiful meaning you didn't know about.
Or maybe one you'd rather avoid. And this is important. Involving others cautiously.
Yes. Be selective about who you ask for opinions. Only share if you genuinely want feedback and are prepared to hear things you might not like.
It's totally okay to keep your shortlist private until you've decided. Protect your process.
Absolutely. And the final reminder on that. Choose a name that you love as parents. Don't choose based on pleasing grandma or your best friend. It's your decision.
Okay. Now, one last very human point the guide addresses. Acknowledging disappointment.
Mm-hmm. If a name you really, really loved gets vetoed, it's okay to feel sad about it. That's a varied feeling.
It's a little loss in a way. The guide suggests healthy ways to process that.
Yeah, like journaling about why it was meaningful. Or maybe finding another way to honor that name or its meaning, perhaps, for a future child's middle name, or even something else entirely.
Like naming a beloved plant or pet.
Could be. Anything that helps you acknowledge the feeling and move forward positively.
And it ends on such a lovely, reassuring note.
It does. Ultimately, your child is the one who will give their name its true meaning. The love, the connection, the person they become, that's what imbues the name with significance, far more than the name itself.
That's a wonderful way to think about it. So as you embark on this amazing, sometimes crazy journey of choosing a name, remember the power of working together
Understanding each other's perspectives, being respectful,
and focusing on the long-term gift you are giving your child.
and maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to reflect on. As you consider all these ideas, what single quality or feeling do you hope your chosen name will ultimately evoke in your child as they grow and shape their own identity?
Something to ponder. Wishing you all the very best on this exciting adventure. We'll catch you next time for another deep dive.